Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby, and today I'm going to be starting on a new reading vlog, and it's going to be a reading vlog where I read a new thriller as well as a few new horror books. I'm also going to be dipping my toe into extreme horror because this is a book that I picked, I picked out of my Patreon prompt jar this month to read an extreme horror book, and so this is the book that I decided to go for, and it was quite an experience, to be honest, reading this book, so I captured all of my feelings and thoughts in this vlog. And this vlog is a little bit more chaotic, I guess, than normal from me because I started off the month of April working on a specific kind of thriller reading vlog that didn't end up working out because I was DNFing a lot of things left and right. And so this vlog just kind of came to be because I ended up canceling my other vlog. And so I hope you still enjoy. I read a lot of books in this vlog that I've been very excited to read. And so I really hope you enjoy. Let's cut back to about a week ago. Hello, how's it going? I wanted to give you an update because I have started on The Kind Worth Saving by Peter Swanson, and I wanted to do an update because I'm already 57% of the way into this book. I literally, earlier this morning I got home from grocery shopping with Rachel, and I hate grocery shopping because it always takes so much energy and it's just so much time. Then right when I got home, I just kind of curled up in bed and just started listening to this audiobook, and before I knew it, 2 hours had passed and I'm just sitting here obsessed. I can barely even focus on the games that I'm playing on my phone while I'm listening because I'm getting so invested. And because I don't have the physical book with me, I'm taking some pretty extensive notes in my notes app so that I don't forget what's going on in the book. But oh my god, this book is wild so far. And if you have no idea what The Kind Worth Saving even is, it's actually the sequel to The Kind Worth Killing, which is one of my favorite books of all time. The Kind Worth Killing is definitely one of my top favorite thrillers of all time, and it's the book that really put Peter Swanson on the map for me, as a thriller author. But I also feel ever since The Kind Worth Killing, I haven't found any other Peter Swanson books that I love as passionately, and in fact, some of his more recent stuff has been so disappointing to the point where I almost considered I don't want to read him ever again kind of thing. But because this one is, a sequel to one of my favorite thrillers of all time, I was okay, I just want to go in with an open mind and just see where this is going. And so far, I am absolutely obsessed with this. So far, this feels just as good as The Kind Worth Killing to me. I mean, granted, it has been so many years since I read The Kind Worth Killing that my memory is a little bit fuzzy on it and I don't remember all the details, but this book is so good so far. The general premise is that we're following this woman named Joan, and she used to be the student of this guy who was a teacher named Mr. Kimball. And so Mr. Kimball, he used to be a high school teacher, but then he eventually went on to do some police work, and then now he's kind of a private investigator type of dude. And so Joan, she used to be a student of his back when he was a teacher, and she goes to him now that he's a private investigator, and she says that she thinks her husband Richard is cheating on her, and she just kind of wants proof and evidence that he's actually cheating on her. So she hires him to get close to the situation and try to figure out what's going on. And it's cool because the story is mainly told from two perspectives. So we do get Kimball's perspective in the present day as he's investigating what's going on with her husband, but then we also do get Joan's perspective in the past from when she was 15 years old, and we get to see when she first met Richard. And then we also get to see how Richard had this cousin named Dwayne who was kind of a douchebag asshole, the worst person ever. And so it's really interesting because we go back and forth between Joan's point of view from when she was a teenager, and then we get the private investigators chapters in the present day, and we just go back and forth. But I feel like The Kind Worth Killing, this book, The Kind Worth Saving, it's already, there's already been so many twists twists and turns, and I've already, like, I just had another moment right before this update where my jaw just like hit the floor because of a realization I just had and like where the story's going right now. Oh my gosh, dude, this feels like Peter Swanson is fucking back, dude. Like, I have not been this excited about a Peter Swanson book in so long. And honestly, like, this is one of those thrillers where I feel like I need to finish reading this today because I'm like so invested. I need to know what's going on in this book. And that feeling, like, I haven't had that feeling in such a long time with a thriller. So like, holy shit, could this be a 5-star? Like, I am obsessed. It's just so freaking interesting. And I feel like Peter Swanson's doing a really great job with like kind of like twisting and turning the story and just making you think you know what's going on, but then pulling the rug out from under you and making you think like, oh fuck, like I actually have no idea. I also think it's so cool because, you know, this is a sequel, and so we are seeing some of the characters from the first book. You know, at first when I was starting to read this, I was like, how is this a sequel? Like, is it just kind of a similar vibe to The Kind Worth Killing? Like, I wasn't sure how it was going to connect, but then a little bit later on in the story, we do get some interaction between one of these characters and one of the characters from The Kind Worth Killing. So I would say that this is a sequel where, like, I do think you should read The Kind Worth Killing before reading this one, because I think this book, I mean, so far, it can read as a standalone for the most part, but I think it's even more fun if you, like, know who these characters are and you know their history, and it does kind of spoil, you know, some things from The Kind Worth Killing, whereas, like, I don't think you could read The Kind Worth Saving and then still enjoy The Kind Worth Killing the same way. At least that's my opinion so far. I don't know. I'm obsessed. I'm loving it so much. I literally went into this book with, like, the lowest expectations possible, and I'm absolutely loving it. So, like, Peter Swanson, prove me wrong. Let's fucking do it. Let's have another 5-star for Peter Swanson. Wouldn't that be so cool? Anyways, it's almost 5 o'clock at night. I think I might just like lay in bed a little bit more and continue listening to this on audio, and then I think we're gonna be making some burgers for dinner tonight, like some homemade burgers, because we have some meat that we want to use before it goes bad. And then I don't really know what the plans are for the rest of the night, but I know what I'm gonna be doing because this audiobook is everything right now. And Sprite. Ooh. Oh my god, I am screaming. I just finished The Kind Worth Saving, and I think this was 5 stars. Like, I think it had to be 5 stars. It was so freaking good. You know what's so cool is that as I was reading this, you know, I was messaging my friend Brittany, and then Brittany was like, oh my gosh, no way, I'm also reading it right now. And I was like, no way, that's so cool. And then I was messaging my friend Mikay because, you know, me and Mikay, we have a history with Peter Swanson. If you remember the 9 Lives booktube live show from last year, you know, but we were both really huge fans of The Kind Worth Killing. So I messaged Mikay and I was like, hey, I don't know if you were planning to pick this book up, but like, I'm 50% in and I'm absolutely obsessed and I'm loving it. And then Mikay was like, oh my gosh, let's do a spontaneous buddy read. And so I got my friend Mikay to start reading it, and so he's reading it right now and he's messaging me his thoughts on it, and Brittany's messaging me her thoughts on it. And so it feels like I have like a buddy read going on with a few of my friends right now, and that just makes my heart happy. And I'm so glad and so shocked to say that this was 5 stars. Like, this was so freaking good. This is the Peter Swanson that I've been missing. Like, let's fucking go. Like, me and Mikay were like, how is this the same person that wrote 9 Lives? Like, I don't understand. Like, I feel like Peter Swanson, maybe he just lost his way for a while there, but now we're right back in it, baby. And this book, it was just so entertaining. Like, this is one of those thrillers where like I could not put the book down. I mean, it was pretty short. The audiobook was only like 8 or 9 hours, I think, so it was a really short audiobook. And it's been a long time since I've just like listened to an entire audiobook in like one afternoon. Like, I could not put that shit down. And I feel like in a lot of ways it was really similar to The Kind Worth Killing, because it would do that same thing where like there would be different parts of the book and there would be different twists at the end of every single part, and it would constantly be, you know, like lying to you and making you think you know something, and then it would trick you and you don't know. And it was just so interesting. Like, the characters Joan and Richard in this book, like, I was just absolutely fascinated by them. I just thought that they were really well written, and just overall, like, just in general, I was really fascinated by all of the characters in this book. I feel like all of the characters in this book were just kind of like shady, but also just like really fun to follow. Oh my gosh, what a freaking blast. Like, I am so glad that I had such a good time with this one. I was nervous, you know, like I didn't even know if I wanted to read this book because that's how done I was with Peter Swanson. Wow, holy shit, he just did that. So like, incredible, 5 stars, highly recommend. And like, no, if you're wondering, I don't think you would necessarily need to reread The Kind Worth Killing before picking this one up. I do think this book does a really good job of like recapping you and kind of like refreshing your brain on the things that happened in that book. But I do think you should read The Kind Worth Killing before you read The Kind Worth Saving if you haven't before, because I do think it kind of spoils things if you haven't read that first book. And you know, The Kind Worth Killing is one of my favorite thrillers of all time, so of course I would highly recommend reading that one. Anyways, yeah, wow, amazing. I can't even imagine reading these 2 books like back to back because you probably pick up on even more things. Like, I'm sure there's some small details that maybe went over my head a little bit because it's been so long since I've read the first book. But oh my gosh, it just feels so good. It feels so good to give Peter Swanson 5 stars again. Let's go. Anyways, we had a nice dinner earlier tonight. Me and Rachel were making burgers and we realized that we didn't get any like cheddar cheese, or like we didn't get some things that we needed. So we decided instead to try to recreate the buttery jacks, like the buttery jack burgers from Jack in the Box. So we did kind of like a Swiss bacon, you know, garlic butter type of thing instead. And it actually turned out pretty incredible. Like, it was very, very delicious. And now Rachel was just texting me saying she wants to make crepes, you know, because we just got a bunch of like strawberries and Nutella and a bunch of stuff from the grocery store today. So I'm like, literally, yes, like let's fucking make crepes. It's been so long since the last time that we made crepes. Like, I miss them desperately. That beautiful ass crepe.
My little baby crepe.
Oh, they're so cute though. We whipped out the crepe pan. This is where the magic happens. We got the strawberry Nutella station.
I can taste your lies. How to measure
It's a freaking crazy days.
I could never hold you down. One of us will have to take a bow. Feeling you so close to make me drive around. Everlasting love so
Hello,
much.
how's it going? I wanted to update you because I have started on the next book that I'm reading for this video, which is The Spite House. I was able to get this one checked out on audio from my library. I know, my library is just coming through with the audiobooks this month. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm getting every audiobook that I've been desiring lately. The Spite House by Johnny Compton. This is one that I've been wanting to read because, you know, Kayla over from Books and Lala, she just announced this as her Literally Dead book club pick for the month of March, and I was like, oh shoot, I don't know if I'm gonna get around to it in time because the live show is literally coming up in 2 days from like right now. But then randomly my library was like, oh, your hold just came through, and so I was like, oh my gosh, perfect timing. So I decided that I wanted to, you know, go ahead and start listening to this one before her live show, and I'm now 31% of the way into it. And this one's really cool because it's a horror novel about this family, and so far it's giving me major Hill House kind of vibes. It's reminding me of like Haunting of Hill House, it's reminding me of Kill Creek, it's reminding me of White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. Like, it's giving me all of those vibes so far because we're following this family who's going to be moving into this, you know, haunted house, essentially, because he gets offered this job where the people just want to get evidence of paranormal activity in this house. And so his job is literally going to be to like move into this house with his family and try to get evidence of like some kind of paranormal activity or like some kind of haunting that's taking place at this house. And so far, I don't know, I'm already really invested. I'm already really liking the characters. I mean, I was just saying, you know, that I am kind of nervous, I guess, for this because, I don't know, so far I'm really enjoying it, but the average rating on Goodreads is like not that high. It's like a 3.5 right now on Goodreads, but at the same time, you know, looking at a lot of my favorite horror books, like usually my favorite horror books do have lower ratings on Goodreads, I've noticed. Some of my all-time favorite horror books have like a lower than a 3.5 on Goodreads, so I'm like, I think horror is like like the most subjective genre. Like I really think horror is one of those genres that people just tend to rate it lower if it's like not their thing, you know? So like I'm trying to keep an open mind and just think like, okay, don't even let the Goodreads rating affect me at all. Just enjoy, just like be in it, you know, enjoy the ride. And yeah, so far, I don't know, I'm really liking it. I feel like there's already been, you know, a few good moments with these characters. I'm already really liking this dad character because he seems like he's, you know, so willing to like do anything to provide and protect his family. And I like that he's going into this with a very like serious mindset, you know, because he asks like the lady right away, he's like, do I have any reason to be, you know, afraid? Or like, you know, he's asking her like, do you really believe that something's here? And I just really appreciate that he's taking this so seriously because like he doesn't want to put his family in danger, but he also like desperately needs to provide for his family. So like his situation is just very interesting, and I'm already really connecting not just with his character but also with like the whole family, and I'm just really curious to see where this is gonna go. I am currently doing some Patreon reading sprints this morning, so I think, I don't know, I do have a video that I need to start editing this morning, so I might be working on that first, but then after that I'm going to be jumping right back into the Spite House.
I hope you know
Hello, how's it going? It's the next day. I know, I've been so terrible at updating this vlog and I'm sorry. Yesterday I was doing Patreon reading sprints for like 4.5 hours and I was editing that video the entire time. Like I didn't even get to read, which is crazy because I didn't think it was gonna take me like that long to edit the video. But then also like my sister was in the room with me and we were just talking and chatting for a bit too. So like I was just very distracted yesterday, but I was able to read a little bit more of The Spite House last night, and then this morning I ended up finishing it. And I don't know, to be honest, I feel like I have mostly like middle of the road kind of like meh thoughts about this book. I feel like it's probably gonna end up being a 3-star for me because, you know, I definitely agree with what my friend Ashley over from Ashley's Little Library, you know, like she read this book in a reading vlog earlier this year. She was saying that there reaches a point in the book between like the 25% to 50% mark where it just really slows down and it gets very slow and very boring, and there's not a lot happening in this book. And I feel like the author spent so much time preparing us for this haunted house and the characters being like, well, are you sure you want to do that? And just kind of like teasing us, oh, something's coming or it's building up to something, and just kind of like, I don't know, like the suspense was like well written, I guess, in a way, but it got very repetitive for me to the point where I was just kind of bored and I was like ready to move on. And then even once they were in the house, I don't know, it's like there was just nothing about this book that really like grabbed me. You know, I was just expecting for like a book that's really about a haunted house, I was expecting to feel a lot more like scared, or like at least get that intense feeling of like, oh shit, like shit's about to go down. Like I never really felt that way. And it's like, I don't know if it's the author's fault necessarily or if this book just didn't work for me personally. Like I liked the characters enough. I really liked the dad, Eric, in this book. I liked his relationship with his daughters and how he was, you know, willing to do anything to protect them and really look after them. I don't know how I feel though about like how many perspectives and characters we follow in this book, because I think at times it got a little bit confusing for me and I would have rather just followed the point of view of the dad, Eric, or just the dad and the daughters. Like I don't think we needed all of the extra point of views that we got in this book, and just listening to this on audio, that made it feel a little bit confusing for me at times, like trying to follow along with what was going on. I also, you know, from Ashley's vlog that I talked about, I'll have her vlog linked down below, by the way, but she was also talking about, you know, the idea of like what is a spite house, and it's actually really interesting if you like look into the history of like what a spite house even is, because I was like, what does that even mean? And it's basically like these houses that people made out of spite. It's like if people had like an alleyway in between two houses or something, they would put a spite house in the middle so that it would prevent people from like making a lot of noise in that alleyway, or from like causing a lot of chaos in the alleyway, and just like random stuff like that. I just think it's so fascinating, and I really like you know, the idea of a spite house, and kind of how like spite is like a really big theme throughout this book, and like meanness. I thought that was really interesting, and that was, you know, it played a big part in the story, and I really liked that aspect. But I don't know, otherwise I feel like this was pretty forgettable for me, which is sad, because at the beginning I felt like this could have been something I could have really enjoyed. You know, I was comparing this one to like a lot of my faves, so I don't know, I feel like this is one of those stories that it had a lot of potential, it just didn't really end up working for me. It was a 3-star. Like, it wasn't bad. It was just fine. You know, now this afternoon, I put on my Libro beanie, which I like never wear beanies anymore. I don't know why. I always like forget that I have beanies like in my closet. Like, I just never wear them anymore. But I put on the Libro beanie and I put on my Rep, you know, crew neck. I just had to do it. I just got this off Etsy, by the way. Like, pretty, you know, chill Friday afternoon. I finished reading The Spite House this morning while I was eating, and then I was pretty much just laying in bed all afternoon rereading Fangirl because I've been in such a rereading mood lately. Like, I don't know what's gotten into me, but all I want to do is like reread books now. But I just decided to get out of the apartment. I picked up a couple of my library holds that I've had waiting for me, and now, you know, because it's Friday night, me and Rachel have declared that Friday nights are for pizza and Love is Blind, and so that's pretty much my plans for the night, is to watch the new episodes of Love is Blind, even though I'm absolutely hating this season, like low-key. Like, this season, season 4, oh my god, everybody's driving me nuts on this season, but it's like that train wreck that you can't look away from. Like, you just keep coming back to watch more of it, and so that's kind of where I'm at with Love is Blind. But we're probably just gonna get some pizza. I'm probably just gonna like heat up a frozen pizza, make a Caesar salad, and watch Love is Blind, and then hopefully start the next book. Hello, it's about 10:15 at night or so. Me and my sister, you know, we had some dinner, we had pizza, we watched Love is Blind, and oh my gosh, episode 10, dude, if you know, you know, if you watched it, you know, I'm so freaking pissed. I could fight someone right now. You know, at the end of the day, like, no spoilers or anything, I'm not gonna talk about spoilers, but I just hate when people make other people feel like shit for being too sensitive, because I really think that we need more sensitive people in the world. And I just think it really sucks when someone makes somebody else feel like being too sensitive is like a negative thing. I just absolutely can't stand it, will not tolerate it. It just makes me so upset. I also can't believe that we're already like on finale night of Love is Blind next week. Like, what the heck? This season went by really fast. But anyways, I'm here to update you because I have decided to read It's Me, Charlie next, which this one is, you know, the extreme horror book. And so I don't really know what I'm getting myself into with this one. I've heard all kinds of creepy things about this book, and I just decided, you know, because tonight is a really like rainy and kind of like stormy night, and so I thought it would be kind of fun to just like sit on a pillow, curl up by the window with like a blanket, and just read this book and maybe like film some of my reaction to it. I've heard there's at least a few scenes in this book that are like some truly disturbing shit that like I don't even know if I'll be able to stomach this stuff, to be honest, but like I thought I would give it a go. So like, why not? Let's just do it, right? Like, we'll see what we're getting ourselves into. I don't really know. It's only 60 pages though, so I feel like I can read this all within one sitting, right? Let's do it. What? Too weak for this shit. Why? 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 My stomach is not happy with me right now. Okay, hi. So I finished the book. I brought you into the office because my room is like directly above Rachel and Obed's room, and they're both sleeping, so I didn't want to be too loud in my room. But like, bro, what the fuck? dude, what the fuck? This is exactly why I don't know if like the extreme horror is my genre or not, because some of this extreme horror just like genuinely grosses me out and disturbs me to the point where I feel a little bit nauseous. And you know, if you don't know anything about this book, if you don't know the premise, it's basically about this guy named Charlie, and he's kind of like this creepy ass stalker. He runs a bookstagram account under a disguise as like a young teenage girl named Charlie. And he's really obsessed with this woman who's an author, and she's like an indie romance author. And he has, you know, completely like studied her romance books, and he thinks that he knows how to like turn her on, and like he thinks he knows all of her fantasies that she's like written in her romance books. So he's convinced that he is like the man for her, that he's gonna like fulfill all of these fantasies that she has. And so he like makes a plan to go and like abduct this girl and then like have her, you know, at his place. That's essentially the story. You know, it's only 60 pages long. This book was just, oh my gosh, there's a scene that everybody talks about with this book that involves like a Taco Bell cup. And if you know, then you know. And like that was by far the most disgusting shit I think I've ever read in my life. Like that oh, like it makes me cringe just thinking about it. Like I never want to think about that again. Like that flipped my stomach upside down. Like that was so gross. Sexual violence against women is something that I really struggle with in books. Like it's something that is just really difficult for me to read, and there was quite a bit of that in this book as well. And just like sexual violence in general, like there was a lot of sexual activity period in this book that was like very disturbing to read. And like I don't know, I don't know how to rate something like this. I don't know if I want to rate something like this. I would not say that this was an enjoyable read in any sense, because it was like half the time I just felt so on edge and so disturbed by, you know, Charlie's character and like his delusions about this girl. But also like it was just genuinely so disgusting and disturbing in a way that it's like, ugh. I do think this book has great like readability, if that's a thing. Like I think it's a quick read and it kept me intrigued. But I also think as a story, like I don't know, as a plot, I just thought sometimes the characters would do things that like didn't totally feel realistic for their characters. Like I don't know, like maybe I'm just thinking too much into this, but I'm like the ending, like I don't know if I would buy that it would just end and wrap up that quickly. I mean, luckily this book is only about 60 pages, because I don't think I would, you know, be able to handle anything longer than 60 pages of this. But at the same time, like I do find it hard to believe like where the story wraps up at the end. Like it just felt a little bit rushed. Even if I were to rate this, I don't think I would rate this one super high, because like I'm not obsessed with like the story and where the story ended up going anyways. But yeah, I genuinely don't know how to rate this. I really feel like this might be one of the rare times where I just like don't rate a book, because I don't feel comfortable rating it and I don't know how I feel about this. All I feel right now is like a little bit nauseous, and like I just want to go read a romance or something so that I can feel something again. I just don't know if extreme horror like this is a genre that I want to continue reading. You know, I really don't know if it's my thing. I don't know if I'm too soft for this shit, if I'm too weak, I don't know. Anyways, I think I'm going to go to bed and try not to have nightmares. Maybe I'll have to, you know, listen to some romance on audio or something before I actually fall asleep, or at least distract myself with TikTok. And then tomorrow morning I will start something new. Hi, how's it going? It's the next morning and I wanted to update you because I have started on my next read, which is The Trees Grew Because I Bled There by Eric LaRocca. I decided to, try and match the book today with the red because I was like, I'm kind of obsessed with the red on this. And I know you're probably wondering, you're like, bitch, you just said last night that you were like done with horror, and then the next day I immediately pick up another horror book. But what can I say? I feel like with the horror genre, there are still a lot of things that I'm navigating as far as like my taste in horror goes, and I think I've definitely figured out the fact that I do not like reading about torture, especially when it's like torture and violence against women. That is something that is just very difficult for me to read, and I think that's mainly the reason why that book last night bothered me the way that it did. It was just very difficult to read. But I do think with stuff like this, like Eric LaRocca's books are definitely gross. Like they're definitely nasty, gross, disturbing, but they're disturbing to me in a different way, and there's a lot more like body horror, and it's more like psychological, And so this book, The Trees Grew Because I Bled There, this one's one of his newer collections of short stories, and there's 8 short stories in this collection, and I've read the first 4, and I'm not gonna lie, the first 2, I thought they were a little, like, I don't know, the first story, I think it just went way over my head. Like, I have no idea what that first story was even about, and then the second story, I thought it was fine, but then that third story, called The Strange Thing We Become, holy shit, that was like one of my favorite short horror stories I think that I've ever read. Like that was so fascinating. And then I just read the story that's called The Trees Grew Because I Bled There. That was the 4th one. And that one was also so interesting and so well written. I think so far the thing that a lot of these short stories in particular have in common is this theme of like grief and like losing a loved one and how scary and terrifying and just awful that is. There's this one quote that is in the 3rd short story in this collection, which is like, my personal fave. They said, "I think that's the most dangerous part about being human, conceiving nice ways of saying something truly terrible." And this short story in particular is about this couple, like these 2 women that are together, and one of them gets cancer, and it's talking about how cancer really like changes a person and a relationship, and just how awful it is to see someone you love going through something like that. And the writing in this is just so powerful because it'll say, "What the doctors didn't tell me was how much I would change while watching her suffer. I shouldn't be surprised though. Each thing we love takes a little piece of us, whether we give it willingly or not. By the time we find the person we were meant to be with, we're a honeycombed shell of what we once were. Each person we love turns us into the strange thing we become." Like, God, isn't that just beautiful? Like, I love Eric LaRocca's writing. Like, every time I read one of his books, I am incredibly impressed by the writing, whether that's, just beautiful writing in general or just like some truly disturbing, gruesome, like horror writing. I think he's so good at the body horror. Oh my God, especially with the book or the short story that's actually called The Trees Grew Because I Bled There. Oh, some of the body horror in that was making me a little squeamish. I was like, oh God. I also just really appreciate the fact that Eric LaRocca, in almost every single one of his stories, he has at least one queer character, like almost all of the times. And I just really appreciate that representation in horror books because I feel like, I don't know, even within the last like 5 years ago, it would be so hard to find any queer characters in horror books, but I feel like with Eric LaRocca, like he's always got that representation in almost all of his stories, and I just really appreciate that, and I think that's really cool. And so yeah, I'm about halfway through the collection. I've read the first 4 and I only have the last 4 left to go, so I think I am going to read at least 1 or maybe 2 more, and then I might try to go to the gym this afternoon because it's almost like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and later tonight I have a Patreon movie night for the movie The Invitation that's on Netflix. It's that like newer one. I don't really know much about it, but I'm going to be watching that with my Patreon later tonight, which I'm very excited but also very nervous about because I get really nervous anytime I'm going to like watch a movie on my Patreon with like a group for like a horror movie that I haven't seen yet, because I get scared very easily, and I think they all know that now. Like, I'm kind of a little bitch sometimes. And so hopefully that movie's like not too scary. Hopefully I end up really enjoying it. But yeah, I think I'm going to try to finish this one up today for sure because I'm really enjoying it.
Sleep, my veins run dry, I'm empty. I can't see, I'm blinded by this concrete. And I should call you, see what you've been up to. I've been wondering, how far did you go in 7 months? I bet you're happy and don't think that much about me. Here I am, not knowing how to move on without you.
Okay, hi. It's much later in the night. It's about 11 o'clock at night, and I have had such a busy second half of this day. I mean, I did end up going to the gym like I said I would, but I ran into my friend Austin at the gym, and oh my god, we were talking for like an hour because I haven't seen him in such a long time, and it was just so good to catch up with him. So like that was unexpected. And then I made dinner. I made like a really good like chicken, like green bean with potatoes dinner. It was freaking fantastic. And then shortly after that I had the movie night with my Patreon, and we ended up watching The Invitation. And The Invitation, like the movie ended up being just okay. Like it wasn't like a favorite of mine, but I also wasn't the biggest fan of like the horror trope that was used in that movie. And I thought the first half was like really interesting, and then the second half just got a little bit like cringy, and it was kind of underwhelming. I have been laying in bed since I just got out of the shower, I washed my hair, and I just finished reading the next short story in this collection that was called You're Not Supposed to Be Here. Holy shit, dude. 5 fucking stars. That was so good. It was major like, I don't know, it kind of reminded me of like Cabin at the End of the World. Like it just had a really eerie feel to it. We're following this gay couple at the beginning. They have this child, and this weird couple just approaches them and they say, "You're not supposed to be here." And then things just really take off from there. I don't want to spoil too much about what it was about, but like, holy shit, dude, that was 5 stars. That was one of my favorite short horror stories that I've ever read from Eric LaRocca. Like he just did not. Oh. So I'm having a great time with this collection. Like this is definitely some of my favorite, you know, horror writing that I've ever read from Eric LaRocca. Like this is like, could this actually compete with my favorite Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke? Like that's always been my favorite Eric LaRocca, but this one might be my second. Like this is so freaking good. So I think, I don't know, I'm a little bit too tired to continue reading, so I'll definitely be finishing these up in the morning. But like, oh my god, I'm obsessed, dude. Eric LaRocca is an icon. I was messaging him on Instagram earlier, you know, because Eric LaRocca was so kind enough to send me this book, and it's even signed. Like, it's a freaking signed copy, and like he is such a freaking sweetheart, and I just like really adore him as a human. So like, excuse me, my camera just tipped over while I was speaking to you, but it's really cool that not only is he like an awesome horror writer, but he's also like a genuinely cool person. So like, that's awesome as well. Hello, how's it going? It's the next morning, afternoon. I don't know if you can hear with the window behind the camera, but it's very windy, rainy, stormy today. It's actually Easter, you know, morning on the time that I'm filming this, and it's looking a little scary out there, you know, it's feeling very stormy, so I apologize if you can hear the wind hitting the window. But I did want to update because this morning, after I woke up, I finished reading The Trees Grew Because I Bled There. And those last 3 stories that I had left were very interesting. So the last 3 that I just read were called Where Flames Burned Emerald as Grass, and then I read I'll Be Gone By Then, and then Please Leave or I'm Going to Hurt You. And that last one, especially the Please Leave or I'm Going to Hurt You, that was like disturbing in like a different way than I was expecting. I was like, wait, what the fuck? Like, what am I getting myself into right now? So that was very interesting. I think my favorite out of those 3 was probably that first one, that Where Flames Burned Emerald as Grass. That one was a little bit longer as well. I think that one was about like 30 or maybe 40 pages long, but I think by far my favorite short story in this collection by far is You're Not Supposed to Be Here. Dude, that one, oh my gosh. I was telling my sister the premise of the book this morning because I was like, oh my gosh, can you believe this short story? I was like, it's very like Cabin at the End of the World meets this other thing that I really like that I don't want to spoil what it is, because I feel like by comparing it to that, you would like start to figure out the twist in it. But like, oh my god, it was just so interesting. And I think that one, You're Not Supposed to Be Here, is probably one of my favorite like short horror stories that I've ever read. Like I would honestly read an entire book about that. Like I think that was so interesting, and it has so much potential to be like a full story. But I also think the short story The Trees Grew Because I Bled There, that one too, that like the collection is based off of that, I think that one is also a 5-star short story for for me. Like I absolutely loved it. So I feel like it's so hard for me to rate, you know, short story collections overall because like those two stories were definitely 5 stars for me and like some of my new all-time favorite short stories. But then there were a few in this collection that I thought were pretty forgettable. Like the first short story was like not a favorite and the second one was okay. Like there was a few that I thought were just okay. So it's like, how do you rate something like this? You know, I'm feeling like I'm probably gonna give it a 4-star overall, but I would still highly recommend reading this one. It is very interesting, especially if you love the short story, you know, horror format. I think horror as a genre works so well in the short story format like this, especially when it comes to Eric LaRocca. Like he really knows what he's doing, okay, with horror. I just absolutely love his writing so freaking much. I know that Eric LaRocca is actually going to be publishing his first like full-length novel, I think this summer. So I am so excited to see what he does with a full-length novel because I think all of his ideas for his short stories in horror are really good. So like I can't wait to see what he ends up doing with, you know, a full-length novel. Yeah, damn, amazing. Highly recommend. Really enjoyed. I feel like this reading vlog went pretty well, you know, because I feel like I did find a few new favorites with like The Kind Worth Saving and The Trees Grew Because I Bled There. And even though like The Spite House and then It's Me, Charlie didn't end up totally working out for me, I still, you know, not that I enjoyed the process of reading It's Me, Charlie. I'd rather honestly like never think about that book again because it traumatized me just a little bit. Like I was even feeling nauseous the next day. It was just not a very fun time for me, but The Spite House was still a pretty enjoyable read, and I definitely want to be reading more books from that author in the future. So yeah, let me know what you think of any of these books. If you've read any of these books, I'd love to know your thoughts on them. You can also probably expect another, you know, kind of like thriller, horror, potentially kind of vlog like this coming from me a little bit later this month. I haven't decided yet on which second vlog I'm going to be working on a little bit later in the month, but it's either going to be just like me reading more thriller and horror books or a video where I'm kind of reading a lot of anticipated reads, which would include thriller, horror books, and a few romance books possibly. I don't really know what I'm working on yet because this whole month has just been so up in the air. Like my mood, I'm like changing plans left and right with my TBR. Like I don't know what's going on. So I'll definitely have a second reading vlog this month. I just don't know what it'll be yet. So thank you so much for watching and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye.